Kill vaccines. This has been used, but it has its advantages and its disadvantages. I'll be showing you that as well. It produces a lot of humoral antibody, the kill vaccines, but does not provide adequate protection. Live vaccines is where we come in. Live vaccines produce a mucosal immunity, and we like the bacteria to colonize, the vaccine bacteria to colonize the trachea of the birds. So, combinations. We can't do those two because it does not work. We can't use antibiotics when you're using live vaccines. Live vaccines are made to be able to be registered in a country. The registrants require the live vaccine, to be killed by an antibiotics. That's the control mechanism they put in place. So we can't use antibiotics once you have given live vaccines. You'll be killing the vaccine. So you're putting your money down the drain. Clevin also wrote, the best way to control in multi-age is vaccination and not antibiotics. So what is the criteria for judging? Most of us look at the return on investment. That's what we are looking for, but there is others that you will appreciate once you have got a fully vaccinated, fully protected flock. We all look at cost of infection. If you look at cost of infection, diagnosis, and medication, it always outweighs your cost of vaccination. Temperature-sensitive vaccines, this is what we make, and this is what we supply in 66 countries. The temperature-sensitive vaccines are made so that they are killed once they enter the core body of the birds. Therefore, shedding is not an issue with these vaccines. So what happens if the vaccine is shed, like the F strain vaccine gets shed, it causes problems in your broilers. That's why you have to come in with your early antibiotics or late 21-day antibiotic application. So if we control that vertical transmission, we are winning the game already. This question is asked every time. Duration of immunity of the vaccines. This is a paper that was published in Poultry Science by Babur. He is no longer affiliated to, in no way affiliated to Bioproperties, but he published this. If you see, if the birds are vaccinated, the protection was until 57 weeks. In my previous employment, I was the livestock operations manager for 2 different companies, and I protected my birds just by vaccinating for MG and MS. That was my way of controlling. So there's other papers here that also say the same thing, so it's for your reference. Whitaker, he has also said what we are saying here, is there is no correlation between serology and the immunity provided by these vaccines. So this vaccine actually behaves the same as Marek's disease vaccines. We look at the vaccine and we say the Marek's disease vaccine works because there is no clinical sign or production losses due to Marek's disease. So serology, how you evaluate serology is what we need to understand really well. Is if there is no evidence of any clinical signs or clinical syndromes, no production drops, nothing as glass top X, nothing, so the vaccine is working. The vaccine is doing its job. Sometimes we look at the different patterns of serology that comes up with this mycoplasma. However, these birds were all vaccinated and they all are protected. So the first graph shows a jump in serology, which is showing that the birds are converting, they're reacting to the vaccine for protection. In Australia, we used to get this, no serology. Why? Because we have replaced our wild type with the vaccine strain. So we are not getting any serological response despite vaccinating. But with mycoplasma, MS, we sometimes get this. This is where the problem comes in. People react to this and put antibiotics in. We have done PCR on them and we only found vaccine strain in there. And there was no infection, no drop in production, nothing. So we make a decision on serology where it is not right. We need to correlate the serology and the clinical science together. Just a brief slide to show you what are we measuring. Are we measuring a tracheitis effect, or are we measuring a serology which is caused by the pathogen? What we are seeing, what we want the mycoplasma to colonize the inside of the trachea if the trachea is intact. What happens in the tracheitis scenario is that the trachea is damaged. Normally the damages come from a vaccine like Lasota, which is very hot, IV, some ammonia in the sheds. The damage of the trachea allows the bacteria, vaccine bacteria, to escape into the system, which then respond. Humoral antibody response comes in. So what we are preaching here is PCR. PCR is the best way to confirm how to do it. We are working in conjunction with some companies in one lab in particular in India, where we are establishing a PCR lab where we will do DIVA PCR. DIVA PCR differentiates between the viral type and the vaccine type to give you a better understanding on how to control mycoplasma. Mixing of vaccines. Some people believe that putting a kill vaccine following a live vaccine primer works. In this scenario, no, it does not. It does not work. And I've spoken about antibodies. Very quickly, you will get this slide. You can read later. Very quickly, this is what happens to the trachea. This is normal trachea and protected trachea. So kill vaccines, as you can see, with the live vaccines, the trachea is well protected. However, despite giving a lot of humoral antibodies, the trachea is not protected at all. So you get infections. How do we test? You can read this, but what we say is add a dye to the vaccine, put it in the eye, and then look into the coronal cleft of the bird. You should get 100%. However, before even the vaccine touches the eye, it is very important how you handle that vaccine. Like I said, the vaccine only survives between 33 and 35 degrees. If you overcook it, you have already killed it. It will not work. This slide we just put some points together for you to do any investigations. Things that complicate the vaccine, like I've spoken about hot vaccines, and IBD vaccines in broilers in 9 to 12 days. Somebody has already said that damaging the bursa reduces the antibodies produced. So if you're putting a mild strain of IBD, I had this problem in Fiji when I was working there, we were damaging the bursa, making the birds more prone. This is in broilers. Another problem, vaccinated and unvaccinated eggs mixed at settings. So how are you going to control that mycoplasma in the hatchery is another thing that needs to be looked at. And in India, some places, they vaccinate only males. So that is not the right way to do vaccination. I'll skip. This is the graph I was talking about. You have an increase in mycoplasma synoviae. Give antibiotics. The control is only temporary. It comes back as soon as the antibiotic wears off. So you go into a week a month antibiotic programs, like most of the people do. This is a list. It has got colistin in there that I dispute, but this is produced by Zoetis of India. And they've got the do's and the don'ts. Once you have put a vaccine, which antibiotics to use, once you have, and which antibiotics not to use. This is the program we say if you're using a live mycoplasma vaccine, I would go to this one because none of our stock are free from infection when it comes in. This is in breeders. So what we say, a cleanup, 2 antibiotic cleanup, 4 days rest before you vaccinate, and then biosecurity comes in play. We need a 14-day gap between Lasota and the vaccine. 14 days prior, 10 days after. So in that way, you will be able to control mycoplasma better, the way we do it. So there's a new method that we have developed. This is a media that we have freeze-dried, and this is reconstituted. We do swab sampling rather than serology, and we put it on FTA cards for the DNA, and we take samples, filter them, and that filtration takes out all the fungus and the bigger bacteria that's there, and only allows the mycoplasma bacteria to go through in the media. This media you can store for 8 days at room temperature, so the bacteria is still alive, so that you can do any type of PCR, DIVA PCR, culture, and also do a antibiotic sensitivity test. So this is what we are doing currently. Some results, very quickly. some results. This is the results survey from China that we have done in July. As you can see, antibiotics used after a mycoplasma vaccine, you get a wild type. So the same scenario in India. So here we are just trying to educate.
Please summarize. You have already exceeded.
Okay. This is my last slide. Thank you. Anyway.
Thank you very much. Before going to the question, I would like to request one announcement actually for the poster presenter. Please go and put your poster before the lunch, because in the lunch time there will be the what you call judging, yeah, and the reading also, knowing the things. Please. Now the floor is open for the question.
Thank you very much for your nice presentation. My question is there any cross protection between the Mycoplasma gallisepticum and Mycoplasma synovium, or if there any combined vaccine for both these strains?
Answer to your question, no and no again. So there is no cross protection between NG and MS, and we don't have any divalent vaccines if you want it.
Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation. I am an intern student from Institute of Agriculture and Animal Science, Korea. My question is is it relevant or not for this presentation? But I have one query regarding the vaccine. For the antimicrobial resistance, the development of vaccines for the bacterial diseases can be the alternative. So, can it be possible to develop the vaccines for the bacterial diseases? Is any research is going on regarding this matter?
To answer that question, this is a bacterial disease that we have developed a vaccine for. There are vaccines made for E. coli in chicken. There are vaccines for salmonella. There are many vaccines made for bacterial diseases, cholera, stuff like that. But the requirement for a vaccine to be exported and imported into a country is that we do not want any secondary infections caused by the vaccine. That is the regulatory requirement. So the vaccine should be killed by an antibiotic if required. So that is one of the things. So the vaccine manufacturers make sure that the bacteria in the vaccine is killed by an antibiotic if required. Just a protection measure, I think.
Good afternoon. I'm a student of veterinary science, and my question is, could you put more light to the temperature-sensitive vaccines and why serology should not be used to assess the effectiveness of the vaccine?
It's a very long answer. It will take me another 15 minutes if you're all right with that. We can discuss this later, but I will tell you the temperature-sensitive vaccines that are made. The two guys sitting in this picture are the two guys who made those two vaccines. So the mycoplasma, we need a mucosal immunity in the trachea, and we need the bacteria to be living in the trachea, right on the top of the trachea. The trachea is a cooler place than the core body temperature of the bird, which is 40.5 to 41.5 degrees. So the air going in keeps that area cool. So this temperature-sensitive bacteria, the vaccine that is made so that it is not shed. Once the bacteria enters the core body temperature of 40 degrees, it's killed. So there is no shedding on the eggs through this. Other vaccines, they do shed. Our vaccines, they are not shedding through that. And it goes, why we say don't look at serology? Serology, like I showed in different patterns, makes you make a very hasty decision to put antibiotics into the system. What you do by putting antibiotics in the system, you are killing the good bacteria, which is the vaccine bacteria as well, when you're putting antibiotics in there. Yeah? So we say go with PCR or culture.
Thank you very much. For the more clarification, we can talk. Our vice chancellor.
Thank you, Dr. Achari. for your nice presentation. My queries is very short. I saw your picture in the picture of the egg, just like to that of the IB affected eggs. So in case of IB, we generally say that there is deterioration of the egg quality. There is small size egg or whiting of the egg shell, and there is more watery in the egg quality. So how do you differentiate this mycoplasma affected egg with that of the IB egg? Is there any other characteristics?
Thank you very much. The IB infected eggs, you'll find soft shells, and the infection is all around, everywhere on the egg. However, mycoplasma will affect the sharp, pointy bit of the egg on top only. So we say glass top eggs if it is only mycoplasma.
Okay. Now already the question is finished, I think, because giving the chance for the vice chancellor, it has already come the biasness. That's why. Now I would like to request Dr. Nina Gorkhali. Why the given name is given? Who is already? Now I would like to request Professor Mohan Sharma to hand over the token of love to Dr. Char. Thank you very much. Now we go for the launch. Then again, I think there is one announcement from Dr. Himal Vijay.
Good afternoon. Now it's time for lunch. Before that, I would like to request all the poster presenters of 3 sessions, policy and socioeconomics, nutrition and health, to paste your poster in the respective poster stand. And then we have poster evaluation committee. I would like to request the evaluators to be here. Dr. Kharak Singh Bishra, Dr. Dev Sapota, V.K. Saxena, Bola Shankar Shrestha, and Dr. Peter Group. I would like to request you 5 to sit together for a while and then decide the model, and the rest of the dignitaries, you can now proceed for the lunch, and we will be back by let's say we are late by 15 minutes, so we will be back by 3. And meantime, I hope everybody will visit the posters.
Dear participants, dear delegates, now the session after the lunch is going to be started. Please be in. Dear volunteers, please help to bring the all the participants, our dignitaries, delegates inside the hall, because our session after the lunch is going to be started. And for the presenters, this time for the oral presenter, the time allocation is 15 minutes. And within the 15 minutes, 10 minutes you have the right time to present very thoroughly. And in 10 minutes, you will have the yellow bulb lighting there at the left of your presentation side. And in 12 minutes, there will be the red bulb. Then you have to conclude your presentation within that 3 minutes. And that would be the, if you are quite efficient for the time, then you will keep your time in a very perfect way. That's how you can show your performance. Respected delegates, please be in for the another session which is going to be started very soon.
That is in a topic for the